Hey guys, Mark here, and today we're going to be taking a detailed look at my 2018 budget video editing build. Let's jump in. The idea for this machine was to build a PC that optimizes video editing performance for a low cost, but also has some innate gaming ability. Most of the parts in this build can be had for under $1,000 US, which is pretty cheap for a PC that can chug through 4K video. At the core of this build is the Intel i7-8700 CPU. This is the non-K version, meaning it can't be overclocked. Intel really stepped up their game on the Coffee Lake chips, and for the price that I got it for, I'm more than happy to own one. A few weeks ago, eBay had a 20% off site-wide sale, and I was able to get this CPU on sale for $250 before tax, which is about $30 cheaper than a Ryzen 1700. I could have gone Ryzen for the extra 2 cores, and that's definitely something that you guys could swap out for if you intend to use this build. Keep in mind though that the i7-8700 tends to be a bit better for gaming, and the Ryzen 1700 is a bit better as a video editing or workstation CPU. To cool the i7-8700, we have the CryoRig H7. Liquid cooling is expensive and still a little ways out from being as reliable as air cooling, so we're going to stick with air cooling for this budget build. The H7 is easy on the eyes, cheap, and no slouch when it comes to cooling performance either. Get out of here, you stock Intel fan, you're too ugly for this build. For the motherboard, we went with the Asus Z370 Prime A. With great reviews all the way around, a sweet looking board with Asus Aura RGB, a decent I/O with USB-C, and plenty of options for upgrading later on, I have no complaints whatsoever. Onto the case. I talked about this quite a bit in my Fractal Design Meshify C video. It's a pretty damn nice looking case. It's cheap, tempered glass, beautiful design, and plenty of cable management options. This is really my favorite case of 2018. The GPU is the same one I've been using for about 2 years now. It's the reference edition of the GTX 980. I got it for under $250, and considering the current state of affairs in the GPU market, I'm gonna ride it out until the GTX 2080s are released, which is supposed to be coming this summer. I've been speaking to a few different distributors, and that's what they're all saying. That's what Nvidia has told them, so I'm hoping that they're gonna release on time. Fingers crossed. The GTX 980 is still a very decent card for gaming and is more than sufficient for video editing, so the card will be just fine for me right now. For the power supply, we went for the EVGA 600B. More than enough power for this build, reliable and very cheap. The cords are incredibly ugly, but it can't be helped. If I stretched my budget a little bit, then I would have been more than happy to grab one of their Supernova models, but oh well. For the RAM, we have 24 gigabytes of DDR4 2666, one 16GB module and two 4GB modules. Down the road, I could upgrade to 40 gigabytes of RAM with an additional 16GB module, but with the current prices of DDR4, forget that. That ain't happening right now. Finally, for storage, I have a 250GB Samsung Evo SSD for the OS program files, a 500GB HyperX Savage SSD for media storage, and 4 terabytes of total on 3 hard drives for cache files, backup, and whatever else I need. Now it's time to test this thing. I ran several tests and benchmarked them against my previous video editing PC build, an i7-6700 machine with the same GPU and only 16GB of RAM. The first test involved a 2-minute Premiere Pro render. The timeline consisted of 6 clips, all of which are 4K MP4 files. One clip had warp stabilizer applied, one clip was played at 1000% speed, and all of the clips had an adjustment layer applied with an unsharp mask effect and curves. Basically, this is my real-life test of how long it would take to render a simple edit for a short film or something similar. On the old machine, the render took a total of 24 minutes and 40 seconds. Not exactly phenomenal, but not too bad either. On the new i7-8700 build, the render took 16 minutes and 32 seconds, which is roughly a 150% improvement. Our CPU still seems to be bottlenecking the rest of the system at 100% usage, while the RAM stayed below 50% usage. This is where the Ryzen 1700 would have really come in handy. The second test involved DaVinci Resolve, my color correction and grading software. In this test, there were 6 clips, again, all of which were 4K MP4 files, with 5 color correction nodes and a total of 9 minutes of footage. The old system managed to scrape by this test with a total of nearly 31 minutes render time. The new system absolutely demolished that with a total time of just over 7 minutes. This is an improvement of almost 450% over the previous system, a number I am extremely happy with. In Geekbench 4, the old system scored a 4345 in the single core score and a 14163 in multi-core. The new system scored a 5080 in single core and a 21587 multi-core. Passmark scores showed similar improvements over the old system. The i7-6700 build earned a 4815 pass mark and a 9497 CPU mark, while the i7-8700 received a 5685 in pass mark and a 13791 in CPU mark. The test wouldn't be complete without a little gaming though, since it was partially built for that reason. The bottleneck in gaming is always going to be the GTX 980. The card is nearly 4 years old now, and though it was a fairly high-end GPU back then, it's not anymore. I use a 1440p monitor, so the games you're seeing now were played at max settings in 1440p. Overwatch and Fortnite were easily maxed out, while PUBG had a little difficulty without dropping some of the settings. Overall, this system works very well for me. Eventually, I plan on adding the new GTX 2080 as well as an additional 16GB of RAM to help out with gaming and render time in more render-intensive programs like After Effects, but for now, this build will suit me just fine. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to show your support, and if you didn't, let me know why in a comment below. I love hearing your feedback. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.